What's up, guys? This is Corey here at Toothless Reptiles in San Diego. I had a couple people hit me up wanting to know how I build my incubators and how I set up my incubators, so I thought I'd do a quick video while I had some time. And basically, I use wine fridges. So if you go on Craigslist or maybe some other sales sites, wherever you're at, usually you can find a couple wine fridges that don't work, or even maybe some cheap ones that do work. The first thing you're going to want to do is take everything out of the wine fridge, the condensers and everything, the pumps, all that stuff. You don't need any of it. Once you do that, that wine fridge will be about 20 pounds. So they don't weigh much at all once everything's out, and you obviously don't need any of it. The biggest thing to look for when you buy your wine fridge is to make sure that all the seals on the door, such as these, aren't cracked or broken, so that it'll hold humidity and heat. And what's cool about the wine fridges is they're obviously glass front doors. I always keep 2 incubators going at once, usually because I have a lot of eggs going. I have that one full, and then this one is actually full with 3 different sets of eggs right now. So I have a few other projects I'm working on behind the scenes. So what I use for my incubators to keep them at the right temperature, I use the Helix proportional temperature control system. So basically the Helix thermostats, what they do that another thermostat does not do is they continuously keep amperage and voltage going to your heat element. So they're maintaining a temperature rather than, say, a ZoomEd or something type of thermostat is strictly, it turns your heating element on when it's at a low temp and it turns it back off at a high temp. And what happens is you get a range depending on how long it takes for your temperature probe to register the temperature changes. So what I've had happen in the past is, say my temperature probe is in the center of my incubator, while I have a heating element on top. So when my thermostat kicks on, well, this heating element might heat up very quickly. So it might get up to 90, 95 degrees before the temperature probe registers that, okay, it's 85 degrees in here now. And now this section of the incubator is now well above 90 degrees, and this has eggs in it. So those eggs are getting extra heated every single time that the thermostat kicks on and off. So your eggs are going through a constant range of temperature changes all the time, every day. And with water monitor eggs especially, this is very bad because they incubate for 6.5 to 9 months or so, 200 to 320 days. So generally your eggs won't live if you use that type of thermostat. So I use the Helix thermostats. Another thing I use is the ZoomEd Repta heat cable, and this stuff is good for the exact same reason. So if I use the heating cable, and usually I'll run a couple coils down the bottom, and then I'll run a single line up the side, a couple coils at the top. Well, what's cool about the heat cable is it's a pretty low wattage. So that's a 50-watt heat cable. I have another 25-watt also, and it takes a while for them to actually heat up. So what's good about that is when the thermostat's running, it's easier for it to maintain a constant temperature with a heating element that takes a while to heat up. Because then once it's heated up and it starts to pump more voltage through that system, or amperage through the system to maintain the heat, well, it's actually heating up at about the same rate as the heat is traveling to your probe. So you're not going to get a huge variation in temperature changes like you would if you had a stronger heating element at the top or the bottom or whatnot. Also, it's always better to only have one heating element attached to your thermostat. You don't want a single heating element with a line going through to your thermostat, even though you could have multiple plugs on your thermostat. For incubation purposes, it's not good. You might have a variation in, let's say, how they were wired exactly, or the exact amount of heat tape that was in there when they made the heat pads. So this pad at the bottom might be heating up a little bit faster than the one at the top. And so the top one might be getting up a little bit hotter than the one at the bottom when the thermostat kicks on, and it just causes a bunch of problems. It's really hard to maintain temperature that way. So basic look inside these things. I I usually have water bottles, and these will help maintain the heat and hold in heat when I open the door to check on the eggs. So you have essentially another heating element in there, which are the bottles retaining heat and radiating heat back out. And then also I put temperature probes inside of all of the containers. These are all 15-quart containers I get off the internet. And then you have your coils of heating element, and then same thing up above, heating element coils. And these are all held down with normal duct tape. Not duct tape, but duct tape, the actual aluminum tape. And then you're going to need your bowls of obviously distilled water to maintain humidity inside here at 100% all the time. One thing you need to keep in mind, which is really important if you're going to try to be successful with incubating eggs, is weigh your containers and get your hatch right to a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's say my container is 100 grams. Well, I put 800 grams of hatch right in there. So I know I need to add another 800 grams of water, because that would be a 1-to-1 ratio of grams in weight of water to hatch right. So now I'm working with what? 800 and 816. So 1700 total weight. So then when I put my eggs in there, what I do is I weigh out and I write down on each of the tubs exactly how much those tubs weigh with the eggs in there and the tops on. So this is the actual weight with a perfect, well, pretty perfect 1-to-1 ratio of water to hatch right with the eggs in there with the containers. And this allows me to weigh the containers periodically, usually once a week, to make sure that I'm not losing moisture in the container. Because even though you're maintaining 100% humidity, you can still lose moisture in the containers. And this is because even though 100% humidity is, obviously you can't get any more moisture into the air, it's not the same as available moisture. So, you know, even if I filled this up with water all the way up to there, this area up here would still have 100% humidity. But if I sunk an egg down into that water now has 100% available moisture, which is different. So you're going to lose moisture out of your containers, and it's best to maintain that weight. So still maintain your 100% humidity, keep these full of distilled water, and then every week or so, pull your container out, weigh it, and you're usually going to have to add about 20 to 30 grams of water to keep your weight up where it's supposed to be. Also, it's just good to keep an eye on how your eggs are doing. Usually your weight isn't going to change because obviously your mass of your egg doesn't change. So that's one of the things I do. Also, I keep a candling system in here, which is good for the eggs. This is actually a Magic Fly, battery operated. It's just it's a cool candling system, and all the front tips of it are rubber, and you can swap these out. It works really well for candling the eggs. You can actually use these to candle the monitors for sex also, which is kind of neat. They're super bright, and they work really well. They get right up on the outside of the egg. Works really good. So I mount all my thermostats on the side, and then I also mount multiple temperature probes inside the incubators to keep an eye on temperature, because you don't want to be opening your incubator all the time. And it's nice to know that even though your thermostat says 84, that okay, you're actually around 84, and you need to have a hygrometer in there also to measure humidity. But those are basically all I do for setting up my incubators. If you have any more questions, let me know. But those are a few quick tips on how to set them up, what I use, how I weigh out my hatch right and set up my hatch right for the eggs, my sizes of containers. Obviously this is all full of water bottles as well to help retain some heat. And that's pretty much it. Then you just load your eggs in there, keep an eye on everything, and sit around and wait for what feels like forever. Keep feeding.